Hello, it's Vicky from Thinky Coaching. You'll see things are a little bit different this week, so I thought I would try doing it as I would a webinar with one of my clients. So let me know whether you prefer the way I was doing it before, where it was a bit more sort of real with the whiteboard and things, or whether you prefer this way. You guys are my guinea pigs in the best possible way, so please let me know what methods or ways you prefer for me to get this information across to you, because I feel very passionately about how we all take in information differently. So if this works best for you, maybe the other way works better, let me know. So let's start. Let's just remind you of what we're doing, who I am. So I'm Vicky from Thinky Coaching, and I am a wellbeing coach. I'm taking you through a positive psychology wellbeing model called Flourish, and it's a mnemonic. So I'll just quickly remind you. So positive emotions and engagement we've already done in the last 2 weeks. And today is relationships, which I'll discuss in a moment. We also will be doing meaning next week and accomplishment the following week. So the idea is, what I'm doing is I'm taking a theme, one of the elements from the model each week as a theme, and I'm doing a Facebook Live session with you guys on a Monday at 8 p.m. And I'm also putting links and blog posts and things on my website, which is a link at the end of this webinar presentation thing. So you can find out further information that way. So this week is relationships. When I'm talking about relationships, I'm talking about sort of interpersonal communication transactions between two human beings. It doesn't mean you know each other really well. You could be acquaintances, you could just be passerbys. Relationships is quite a broad term, okay? So firstly, we are social beings. As you can see, I've put a little evolutionary picture thing there. I'm not going to give you a big history lesson or go too much into the theory behind it, but the reason that we have developed so well, and why we are the big wigs of the world, if you were to call it that, is because we're social. We created relationships thousands of years ago where we were able to help each other out. So there might have been tribes that had different skills, and we would have shared them with other tribes, and we would have built relationships with each other, which meant that we all survived. And that's something that we are all doing now. It's called pro-social behaviour. So it's about things that we do as human beings, as people, that are for the good of us, for our family and friends, but also for the good of society and all of us, which is what we're seeing quite a lot at the moment. We're seeing a case of people are asking if there's anyone in the neighbourhood that needs food delivered because they're social distancing or isolating and can't leave the house. And we've got people just offering to do things for each other. And that brilliant man who's the guy with the Zimmer frame, who's been walking up and down his garden, raising millions of pounds for NHS. All these things, sometimes some really difficult things bring out the best in people, and we come together and we help each other. And that is what relationships are. They're about connecting with people, and generally they're really important, but even more so now, I believe, because we're in our own little houses. You may be with someone else, you may have your partner, you may have your children or housemates, or maybe you're isolating by yourself, as I know that both my mum and my mother-in-law are. So I think this session's quite important. I think that's why I decided to do it as a bit more of a webinar type thing. So I'm going to talk about the three main types of relationships. There are loads of different types of relationships, but for the purposes of this session, I'm just going to talk about three main ones. So the first one is obvious. family. We all have families. Whether we have a good relationship with them or not is a different thing, but we all have families of some kind. And friends, which some people would say are the kin that we choose. And colleagues. Colleagues kind of can cross over to friends quite a lot, especially when you're in the earlier part of your career, because you tend to go out a lot more. When you get older like me, not so much. I'm going to concentrate more on family and friends. Colleagues, I talk about quite a lot in my client workshop webinar type thing. So if you're interested in that, let me know. But I'm going to focus on the family and friends for this session. I'm going to firstly talk about friends, because I feel that with family, there might be a couple of bit more serious aspects. So family, I'm not going to have really somber points. I don't know why I said that. Let's just start with friends. Friendology. So how do we choose our friends? Because we don't just magically have a friend, and well, maybe you do, maybe you have an imaginary friend, but there are three main reasons that we start a friendship, and the main one being proximity. I'm not saying this is the only reason you're friends with someone, maybe it is, but it tends to be the initial spark of a friendship, because you have to be near that person, whether, well, digitally, I guess, you could be near, have contact with someone, I guess. It doesn't have to be physical, but proximity, be around that person in some way in order to make contact. This could be things like, it could be a neighbour, could be a colleague, it could be when you start university, you might be in halls or something like that, so you're in proximity of various people. And then it tends to be that you have shared interests, so the reason that you would probably then develop a deeper relationship with that person. You're not going to know that someone has shared interests if you're not anywhere near them. So it kind of makes sense that you have to have proximity first. And life stage. You'll hear me talk quite a lot about how the fact I am a mum. I'm sorry for the people who don't have kids, because it might be a bit frustrating, but it's because it's kind of a big part of my experience of life. So if it's not relevant, just ignore certain aspects of what I talk about. But life stage, particularly being a parent, there is something called the NCT, which is National Childbirth Trust. The idea is that it's meant to be like private antenatal, but I always call it Please Be My Friend Club. People tend to join it because it's people that are having babies at the same time as you and live near you. And over 4 years later, I'm still friends with the people that we met. There's six of us, 6 couples. So life stage, which could fit into proximity and shared interests. So you can see how it kind of all connects. But how do we develop friendships? Maybe you find it a little bit difficult. You know that there's someone who has shared interests, and you have proximity to them, and you kind of don't know how to go about it. Let's see. Self-disclosure. So sounds a bit serious, well, it kind of is, but you need to disclose things about yourself. You need to open up, be yourself, show that you're human and you're vulnerable, and by self-disclosing, you are showing that person that you trust them enough to open up a bit, and it might make them want to do the same back to you. And it could be, oh my goodness, I feel exactly the same. And then you start talking and it develops a bond. So self-disclosure is really, really important. Humour. I mentioned this last week. A saying that my husband and I have quite a lot is, if you don't laugh, you cry in difficult situations. So sense of humour is really, really important. And having a sense of humour probably fits into the self-disclosure thing as well, because having a sense of humour, sometimes it's showing a vulnerability to yourself if you're making fun of yourself, or just laughter is definitely a medicine, and having a sense of humour and sharing a joke is a really good way to bond with someone. So that's good. This last one's a bit difficult at the moment if you're in a house, if you're in a house with people you don't particularly want to hug, or you don't have a person in the house with you, then physical contact might be a bit difficult at the moment. But having physical contact creates further bonds, because skin to skin, or just, you wouldn't necessarily have skin to skin, but touching another person, the pressure creates oxytocin in your body, which creates a bond and makes you feel good. So if you can hug someone, do it. If you can't, if you don't want to, or if there isn't someone else there is actually a technique, which I'm not going to go into too much now. I'll put a link later, but it's called havering. Lots of famous people have started using. I think Justin Bieber was one of the people who talked about it. It's basically a technique where you sort of, it's kind of like a hug to yourself. So have a look at havering. I think it's Havering, if you're interested in having a look at that. And it's a technique to create a bit of oxytocin and sort of make you feel secure. And it's, yeah, if you haven't got that other person to give you a hug, then maybe it's something that might be quite nice for you. Look.